And welcome in, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. I'm glad we didn't steer you away last week here at the Dynasty Force podcast with Trey's Ugly Mug. But if you're here, thankfully for you, he's not here, at least at the moment. So that's good for you to avoid that, because I know we all want to. But with me, as usual, as always, Billy Brisbane, the almighty, the dedicated, and the football wizard himself, we'll call him. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. On the East Coast in South Jersey, so it's been a beautiful fucking 70-degree day.
I
Tired
know
of the
it's
snowstorms, man.
perfect.
Just about to get done college finally, man, and it's getting real enticing to move somewhere with warm weather, man. So I was thinking about that today when I was walking outside. I was like, man, it's fucking nice outside, man. I wish this was like an everyday thing.
I know. I walked out of work today and I was like, man, I honestly, like, I know we had this podcast to do and everything. I was like, dude, I just want to hang out outside for the rest of the day. Like, it's just the first nice day we've had in so long. And
Yeah.
man, I miss him. Speaking of outside, we have with us FF, and by that I mean Fantasy Forecast, not Fantasy Football, but Fantasy Forecast Listener League Dynasty Champion in its inaugural season, Jesse, at Gray Heisenberg on Twitter, also on Sleeper. Jesse, how's it going on this beautiful Wednesday?
It's going awesome. It's lovely over here. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and the weather here has been pretty solid all the way through. I actually enjoy those cold spells, but man, it's just too nice today. So glad to be here too. I've got some victory laps to run later when Trey shows up.
You do, yes. As I mentioned, Trey will be on the podcast later. He is currently at work. He's going to be heading out soon, though. So for the moment, we do not have Trey, but we will have Trey soon enough. And as Jesse mentioned, he's got a victory lap to take on Trey because Trey is the one that Jesse beat in the championship. It'll be fun to talk about, though, because I know Trey's team has done a lot of retooling since then. And if you look at his team now, it's very different than what it was in the championship. And might I say, a lot scarier as well. So we'll have plenty to talk about when it comes to that later. Jesse, though, congratulations. And a league that I am in, a league hopefully Billy will be joining at some point this offseason. I have to do some convincing, it seems, to get him to take over a rebuild, but he will do it. I promise that I will convince him. I will
start a convince Billy chat, and we can all get in on that. Like to see you get in on there too, Billy.
We'll do like a petition. We could we could get as many signatures as possible. Get Billy to join the Dynasty Force Fantasy Forecast Listener League. One of the more fun leagues I've been in, though. Definitely a lot of action all the time. But like I said, we'll talk a lot about that later. In the meantime, we have a lot to lead up to the tough questions are the headliners for today's show. We have a nice quick question, and then we have the Carson Wentz trade news that I'm sure everyone has heard about by now. We have not yet talked about it on the show, though, so we will do that. And then we have our tough questions later. And when Trey eventually joins, he's going to be destroyed by Jesse, our lovely guest, and our victor. So without further ado, let's jump right into the quick question. Shout out Bill for this quick question. He is a mastermind here. And the quick question itself is, who is the rookie 101 in rookie drafts or Superflex, I'll say. Because I feel like in Superflex it's pretty, understood that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the 101 in like probably 95% of leagues, I'll say. We could definitely talk about single quarterbacks, or for those teams And Bill brought this up earlier. What if you're in a position where you have two great quarterbacks already and you have the 101? Having Kyler and Josh Allen after, they finished 1 and 2 at the position, but you're a little thin at running back or wide receiver or something. So let me head over to Jesse first. What is your thought here at the 101? We talked a little bit about this pre-show, but let the people know.
Well, assuming that it is still super flex, I'm still gonna be going with T-Law for the value. I never truly draft for need on my teams. I'm really drafting the best value when it pops up, and to me, Trevor Lawrence, I can flip that around, turn that into all the needs that I have. If we're outside of that, and I am avoiding quarterback for whatever reason, I'm going to be going with Najee Harris, running back. I love that edge that he gives. He's my next up after the quarterbacks. Najee's my guy.
Najee, I don't know. It's hard to not compare him to Derrick Henry, and it's also hard too because they're from. It just feels like, easy pickings, and like I'm not trying at all with the comp there, based on size, based on being at Alabama, but yet, it just feels so right, and obviously, depending on landing spot, you would take Derrick Henry at the 101 if he was 21 years old. So Najee Harris, I think highly of him. I haven't dived too deep into my rookie scouting yet, but I imagine at this point he'll be my 101. He's just very complete. Bill, how about you? What are you doing at the 101 here?
Yeah, man. I thought this was an interesting pick because recently I've been having to scout and stuff like that. Because in one of my high dollar Dynasty leagues, I got the 202 and the 203, man. So it's just been scouting some college tape. And I just feel like, man, it's a good discussion if you're not talking about Superflex. Because in Superflex, you got to go with Trevor Lawrence. And then it's even interesting to even pick him up, even if it is a single QB. And like Jesse said, flip him for a package or something like that. You never know. Or trade back a little bit. But honestly, man, I know Najee Harris, great running back and all that, but I feel like the tier is like a 3-man tier, and it's Najee Harris, not Trevor. What's the dude's name?
Etienne.
Yeah. And Travis and Jamar Chase. And I feel like Jamar Chase is so much better than Devontae Smith, but it's just hard because he didn't play last season. But I don't know, man. How do you feel about it, Rob?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Jamar Chase is a lot better than Devontae Smith. I think Jamar Chase is bound to be just the next great wide receiver to enter the NFL again, and to get that, there's definitely an argument to be made for him at the 101. It's pretty team dependent for me. If I need running back, obviously I'm going to take someone like Najee Harris or Etienne over Chase. But if I need wide receiver more, I'll be happy to go Chase. And in a neutral situation, I don't know. I would probably side on the running back just because the injuries that tend to happen to them, the depth that you need. But long-term prospects, if I'm taking what I believe is the best talent, then I'd probably have to go Chase with that pick regardless. So while I lean a little bit more towards running back by nature, we could be in a position here where, the talent supersedes that. But again, as you mentioned, Superflex or definitely not in a one quarterback league. I'm not going Trevor Lawrence 101, but at Superflex, I don't think it's much of a question. So and if I'm at 101 and I really don't want Trevor Lawrence for whatever reason, I'm gonna just try and trade down a few picks, maybe just even to 102, and try and get a little more collateral on my end to make up for that difference. I mentioned at the top of the show that Trey would be joining later, and Trey has joined. It is later, so welcome in, Trey. How's it going? Jesse, the floor is yours.
Oh, no.
Actually, I didn't have all that much to talk. Which I do have a question though. Who was the one who did the power rankings again? After our draft in that league. Was that one Trey?
I'm gonna blame that one on Robert, but it was more than likely me. Didn't we put you like at the bottom or something?
It was 100% Trey. Trey made
11
the rankings.
out of 12.
Trey was like, yeah, I based this off of I think it was like Fantasy Pros consensus rankings or something like that. And he was like, yeah, like you get certain points for having a player at top 5, top 10, top 20, whatever. And yeah, I do remember Jesse being 11th in those rankings done by Trey, who I believe had himself. Trey didn't do the actual ranking. I will say this. He did the scoring system for himself, not for himself, but for everyone, and he tried to make it equal.
Yep.
Trey, I want to say you finished 4th in those rankings, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think I was either 3rd or 4th. But who would have known? I mean, and I even remember after that Power Rankings episode, everybody was saying that Jay's team was the best team. That's why we gave Jay the title of the People's Champ. And I don't even think he made the playoffs, so I don't even know what to expect from our fans out there. So I don't even know. But Jesse, congratulations!
Thank you.
I was shocked when I didn't win. My team is pretty stacked, so I was a little upset. But you definitely came in with an upset throughout the season. So congratulations on that.
It was a tough team, and I'll say thank you for that ranking, just because it fueled me a little bit. I took it personal.
He was like, "Yep, I am definitely coming and beating ass now." Speaking of the FF Listener League, the Fantasy Forecast Listener League, Trey, we'll talk about your team real quick, and we'll talk about Jesse's team. I mean, Trey, your team looks a lot different now. I was saying this earlier. Your team looks a lot different now than it did in the championship. It's kind of hard to compare those teams, and I was telling them it kind of looks a bit scary at this point.
Yeah.
No thanks to me on that one because of my ill-advised preseason trade that just completely failed the entire time, and we're not gonna go any further than that. That's all we got to say.
And 1.02 is well worth Emmanuel Sanders. Okay, I don't care what anyone says.
God.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Worst trade I've ever heard. Like, I remember I tried to talk him up on it the day after. I was like thinking in my head, "Damn, dude, you just got fucking robbed."
Rob got robbed.
Fucking Harris, dude, for Emmanuel Sanders.
Nah, dude.
Injury, that fifth one. He's like 35, like he's a dead corpse.
Yeah, it did not go well. I will say, preseason, I was big on Emmanuel Sanders. Drew Brees kind of, fucked that up, number one. Also,
but everything happened that you needed.
I did not.
Thomas got hurt.
Yeah, but the rest of my lineup, a lot of things did not work out the way that I wanted them to. Like Cam Akers doing very little, J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram, who were both on my lineup at that time, were both irrelevant for a while. Kenny Galladay got hurt. I had a lot of things go wrong for me in that league.
Typical
Exactly. And it ended with 102, and sadly it was not my 102. So now I cry. But Trey doesn't have the 102 anymore. He traded it for a lot of assets, basically.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what you got to do. I know a lot of people don't like the trade, but what I do is I target one person a day, and I target that person in every league, and I see how many shares of that person I can get, and it usually ends up making my team a lot better because, I mean, if you're trading, more than likely you're going to end up with a lineup that you want. I mean, as you can see from looking at my lineup, like you said earlier, my team's a lot different from what it was the championship week, even just because I think I've already made like 6 or 7 trades in the offseason in that league, and just you got to make sure to do that roster turnover to make sure that you're not stuck with those older aging veterans that are going to do well, but now is the right time to sell them.
Definitely. You still have a few older aging veterans on your team, but they're still in the win now aspect, so you could definitely make it work with them. Jesse, have you? I have not noticed. I think you've made a few trades. I know you had Kyler at first, didn't you?
I did not.
Or
I don't
Watson.
even remember what my team looked like in the beginning.
I feel like so many trades have happened with like Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray in this league. Like I don't even know who their original owners were.
So I acquired Deshaun Watson about halfway through the season. I made a lot of moves buying. I bought Deshaun Watson because I did not trust Baker to continue, and I didn't like being forced to only have those two quarterbacks that I had. So I ended up buying Deshaun Watson. Loved it. Carried me to a championship. I also bought Aaron Jones and Adam Thielen from Flair, who's been a great trade partner. Shout out to Flair. Hey,
yeah,
he's awesome. He's creative. He's always willing to talk. It's great. So he just sort of caught sense of me going into win now mode about halfway through the season when I saw my sort of geared towards youth teams start doing well. I started deciding to buy up some vets to go all in, and he started selling them to me. And then after, I like this pattern. Once if I lean towards youth, and then if my young players are doing well and I have a shot at contending, I start buying up all the easily priced vets. The ones that Trey's talking about. Selling high, because that is the best point to sell them, and I'm there to buy them. And I try to go all in with those, and I try to reset in the off season. I try to age myself back in the off season. It's a little harder to sell them in the off season, but I like to get them out of the way before they hit that cliff still, even if I have to take a bit of a discount. Because if I wait till closer to the season start, those rookies and young players are going to be, their price goes up.
Right.
So
yeah, I just taking a peek at your team, I noticed you do have the 102. So I know there was a trade between the two of you that worked out somehow over the off season. I could probably pull it up if I really wanted to, but at the moment I'm not trying that hard. But I
actually paid Aaron Jones for that. I remember because I had Flair's 105.
Oh yeah.
So I actually I did a pretty strong overpay to get to 102. I gave Aaron Jones and the 105 to move up to 102 because 102 is a tier break for me, and I really wanted that 102.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you've been talking about Najee Harris at this point, I really wonder who you'll be taking there at the 102. But yeah, definitely got some pieces for sure on the team, even with the retooling and the downgrading in the age. And like I said, this has been one of the more active leagues that I've been in. I'm gonna say easily, like, the amount of trades that have happened so far in this league is probably like whatever, 3 times, 4 times, I don't even know, maybe even more than that, the amount of trades that have happened in like all of my other leagues combined. So this is a great league to be in. Trade's a big factor in that, but regardless of him, there have been other trades that have been made. I made a nice trade. Well, maybe nice trade. Maybe also a bad trade, but we'll see. Trade the other week of a somewhat swap of Cam Akers and CeeDee Lamb, where I got CeeDee Lamb over. I gave a little more than Cam, but that was because of the positional age sort of gap that tends to happen with longevity and stuff. Detroit Beastie checking in. Hey, boys. And trying to comb your hair, man. Everyone, I believe this is Let's Rip on Trey Day. Because I think it's the perfect day to do it. But yeah, Forecast Listener League, we'll have to have another episode where we just really go down, what we had episodes preseason last year on the Fantasy Forecast podcast where we really just went through the league, and like I said, Trey came out with the power rankings. We had the draft on the show, so there was a lot to offer for this league on the podcast last season. So we'll do that again later on in this season, probably do some results of the rookie draft and things of that nature further down the line. But one more congratulations to our champion who is here, Jesse, at Gray Heisenberg on Twitter. And he did previously give some advice of, what he likes to do in going all in when he sees his teams doing well, and then, trying to retool in the off season. So maybe that's a method to success so far, or to follow, I should say. But anyway, we have some other topics to talk about. We have not yet covered Carson Wentz and his trade to Indianapolis. So let's cover the big news there real quick here. The impact of Wentz in Indianapolis. Let me head over to Billy first, because Billy, you are the Eagles fan in the house. What are you thinking here for Indianapolis on their end, how this impacts their offense?
I really like this trade for the Colts fantasy purposes wise. It was kind of getting tough imagining yourself their quarterback situation for next season. Obviously, they're a candidate to draft somebody, but I feel like the biggest beneficiary from this offense is going to be Michael Pittman, the rookie from last year. My only concerns with Pittman was the fact that he basically got given the keys for the wide receiver position, all the targets, all the snaps, and he just didn't really perform too much. It was a little concerning, but I'm willing to buy back low for Michael Pittman. I think his value is going to be a little bit too expensive for dynasty drafts, but if you're in redrafts, obviously looking very far out, I think he's going to come at a good value this season.
Interesting. I do like Michael Pittman as well, and currently the Colts situation when it comes to wide receiver and tight end, I believe the only person under contract who was pretty significant last season was Jack Doyle. So there's value to be had there with Michael Pittman. I like the little point that you made about him. But I will say they have to do something at the wide receiver position, whether it's a first-round pick on a player, whether it's investing over the offseason. There are some great wide receiver free agents to target. So I do believe that Indianapolis will invest. I think it's a good landing spot, too, for Carson Wentz because of the offensive line in Indianapolis. Last season, Philly dealt with a lot of injuries at the offensive line, and it showed a lot of times. But it also showed a lot of times when Carson Wentz would hold the ball too much, or not too much, but for too long. And then, at that point, you can only avoid the rush for so long. But this is going to be in a situation in Indianapolis where potentially he can hold the ball forever because he has a great run game, has a great offensive line. Jesse, anything else you want to highlight on the Colts end here? Any other pieces you're willing to buy?
I'm also a buy on Michael Pittman. Just because I feel like the quality of targets that he got were much, shorter depth, with Phillip Rivers. So, yeah, I agree. I don't feel like he did a whole lot, but I also feel like he's catching much shorter passes than he will be with Carson. One thing that I'm trying to reconcile is the effect it might have on Jonathan Taylor. Carson is weirdly bad at throwing in the flats. It's not a trait that I'm used to seeing from quarterbacks, standing out to me. So I don't know how that might affect Jonathan Taylor, but I do think having a quarterback who can throw deeper, than 10 yards or whatever the average was for Rivers last year will stretch defenses a little more. You're not going to pull up your guys all the way up when you know that he might be able to launch something deep on you. So might open up a better run game for Jonathan Taylor, something to keep track of.
Definitely. I would say so. I feel that. I think Nyheim Hines and a little bit, too, of Jordan Wilkins were involved in the receiving game at the running back position last year for specifically Nyheim Hines was. But I don't think I think Jonathan Taylor will be involved in the receiving game, but I don't think he's going to be, super involved. And the reason you're drafting him isn't going to be because you think he's going to be involved as a receiver, especially Carson Wentz. You know, he's a guy who last year we were in a situation where he mainly dealt with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott at running back, two guys who can catch the football and two guys who didn't see a ton of targets from Carson Wentz. Just his play style, you know, you mentioned not the best when thrown into the flats. Not an option on his end, too, as I mentioned, with holding the ball for a little too long here and there. Trey, any other input you want to mention for the Colts?
I mean, I agree with Jesse about Jonathan Taylor. You got to watch out. The first couple of weeks, I'm looking to see how Jonathan Taylor will be impacted by Carson Wentz. I like the Michael Pittman talk by Billy. I also keep an eye on Paris Campbell. He wasn't healthy last year, so maybe he'll make an impact this year. Tight end, I would love if they got Ertz. We'll see who they target in tight ends in free agency if they need it, but I think Ertz would be a good ad for them. Wide receiver wise, obviously, there's a lot of a lot of top end wide receivers to go after. So it'll be, and I think they're one of the top 5 most cap room in the NFL. So if they want, they could definitely go all in for the Super Bowl.
I really like that Paris talk, Trey.
After acquiring Wentz and the contract that they definitely. Yeah, Paris Campbell, he had a nice role at the very beginning of the season too, before his injury. And you know, it's so long ago that people forget. So thank you, Trey, for bringing him up, because he is a deep dynasty target that people should probably be looking to buy. So definitely good to mention. Let me head over to Billy for this one. As the resident Eagle fan in the house, what's next for Philly, Bill?
For Philadelphia, I feel like our draft plans are going to really have to hinder around building around Jalen Hurts. I don't really like where we're going, like real life wise, but I think fantasy wise, I think we'll be fruitful. I don't think we're going to be that good of a team. So if you give a running quarterback a bunch of garbage time, magic's going to happen fantasy wise. One guy that I have on my team that I'm thinking about acquiring in a couple of different leagues that had a connection with Jalen Hurts, really deep sleeper, might make you throw up in your mouth. Greg Ward, he had some chemistry with Jalen Hurts. That's a guy that you can get for pretty fucking cheap. He might be on your waiver wire also if you're in a shallow league. That's what I'm really thinking of. I think they obviously draft a wide receiver, but, you know, it's always hard for wide receivers to get acclimated to the NFL. But nowadays, they get groomed out of college like we haven't seen before.
Right. I don't know. It's all over the board with Philly. Like, you know, now there's rumors about them potentially taking a quarterback at 6. And
yeah, you got to give them the smoke, dude. You got to put the smoke press conference news out there. It's their job.
Give them the smoke, definitely. Just hand it to them. Hand them the smoke. No, I think they should give Hurts a chance. I mean, like, you know, we've seen big jumps in accuracy over these past few years, depending on how you surround the quarterback. Like Lamar Jackson, from his rookie season to his sophomore season, took a big jump. Josh Allen over these past few seasons to this season, huge jump in the accuracy. And a lot of it was based around the offense that they surrounded them in. Josh Allen last year, when they acquired Stephon Diggs, that helped a lot. And then for Lamar Jackson, they got him a good option, or not a good option, a good offensive coordinator who was able to, you know, fit the needs for him. Mark Andrews was kind of like a number 1 wide receiver for him at that moment too. Hollywood was stretching the field, so they just built around Jackson in the right way. And I think, you know, if Philly builds around Hurts that way too, it could definitely work out. I don't know about drafting a wide receiver though, based on recent Philadelphia, I will say, lack of success at drafting the wide receiver. Maybe just, you know, give up.
I mean, I feel like the only bad one was the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside one over DK Metcalf. That was the only one that I was really mad about.
We'll see.
We'll see about Reagor. I know Justin Jefferson put up astronomical stats, but as an NFL GM and you go scout for an LSU game and you show up at the fucking game and you see on the scouting report you're supposed to be scouting Justin Jefferson and you see Jamar Chase catching touchdowns and breaking touchdowns, you're like, who the fuck's this guy? You're like, oh, he's in another year. You're like, all right, I want that guy. Fuck the other dude. I mean, nobody really saw the Justin Jefferson thing going. And I'm just saying, if you're a scout at the game, where your eyes have gone.
I feel that for sure. Trey, what are you thinking for Philly? Are there any pieces you're looking to buy after this besides Jalen Hurts, obviously?
I mean, I like Miles Sanders. I'm not quite sure what it I'm not. So, I mean, their wide receivers is bad. I might target Dallas Goedert. Other than Dallas Goedert, probably nobody else, to be honest.
Interesting. I do like Goddard. I do like Sanders. Anyone sticking out to you, Jesse?
I mean, I already have Hurts in most of my leagues. I love Hurts. I think he's going to be awesome. I'm buying Sanders if I can. Some people are discounting him a little bit big, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm taking those discounts where I can. I thought that offense just had a rough situation going on. So I was actually very impressed with Hurts and Sanders and what they did with so many injuries on that team that was hitting them. So yeah, I'm big on Hurts and Sanders moving forward.
I do like the Sanders take. I do think.
I feel like Sanders, though, man, the concern with Sanders is this. With running quarterbacks, when the pocket breaks, they rush.
Yeah.
They're not dumping it off to the flats. When Miles Sanders is Miles Sanders, and we all thought he was about to be a top 10 rookie pick. I mean, not rookie pick, but draft pick for this upcoming season. It was really just based off the fact that they said Wentz was going to start. Wentz kind of throws, not dump offs accurately, but he at least throws it. You know what I'm saying? One thing that I always have a problem with, like with Deshaun Watson, for example, is like when the pocket collapses at him, he's a prime example. He doesn't throw it to the slot. He doesn't throw it to the tight end unless it's the red zone. He's just going to run. Instead of just throwing it for 3 yards, he's just going to take the punishment. Hopefully that's something that he will work out of. But, I mean, like you guys said, Sanders is such a good of a talent. He can break away for a 20-yard touchdown and pay off for his fantasy day, and you won't be mad at all.
Definitely. As I was going to head into, I believe it's going to be a strong RPO system in Philly, where you utilize the read option with Jalen Hurts, you utilize Miles Sanders and his electricity as a runner, and then you give easy reads to Jalen Hurts on what to do. So if you follow that system, it should create a lot of good openings for Miles Sanders in the running game. So that's the position that I would be thinking on for Miles Sanders. Maybe he does not catch as many passes as you would hope, but maybe he can make up for that inefficiency in the run game if Philly invests where they should invest, which I've heard some potential trades of Andre Dillard or making other moves at tackle, and I think they should try and keep it intact, maybe work a little on the inside of the line. I believe Brandon Brooks didn't play this season. I know Lane Johnson missed a lot of games. Jason Kelsey, I don't know how many games he played. I think he was pretty healthy, but like I mentioned, Andre Dillard missed the entire season. So they had injuries on the offensive line. If they can invest a little more into it, it'll only get more stable if all those guys come back healthy as well. So I'm not off of Philly, especially in the run game. It's just, upside we'll have to talk about, and we'll see closer to the season how things work out. All right, so let's talk now for tough questions heading into the off season. in Dynasty so far. And I think the best way to kick it off here is comparing two highly impressive rookie running backs for the 2021 season. One is in Baltimore, one is in Los Angeles. J.K. Dobbins versus Cam Akers. Dobbins, I mean, he's definitely got all the talent, and he is in an interesting situation where Mark Ingram was just cut, a second-round pick. They do have Gus Edwards as a restricted free agent. I think he'll be back with the team just because it's kind of hard to get rid of restricted free agents unless teams are willing to make really good offers to those running backs. And Gus Edwards he's a good runner, but I don't know if a team is going to want to make a really good offer for a guy like Gus Edwards. And then Baltimore, obviously, afterwards would have to decline to match that. So I personally believe Gus will be back. Cam Akers, on the other hand, in Los Angeles, especially towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, earned the full workload. In LA, he does have to contend with Darrell Henderson, though, who looked pretty good during the season. So, this or that, really, it could go either way with both of these guys, but they both have tremendous upside at the same time. So I'll head over to Trey first on this one, if you will. Do you have a preference between Dobbins and Akers?
I think they're pretty close in my dynasty running back rankings, but I think I have Cam Akers over him, and that's strictly just away a lot of the rushing touchdowns and especially the rushing yards as well. We saw Mark Ingram. I mean, he was a reliable R2. He had his boom weeks, but there was weeks that he didn't get those touchdowns that we did too, and Lamar Jackson ended up with 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. So you got to level your expectations for Dobbins and maybe even for Akers. But I think I liked what I saw out of Akers in the playoffs against the really good teams. That's whenever the Rams really leaned on him. And I think that they learned that, man, Henderson's good, but he's not Akers. Akers can really make the first people miss and then use his speed to go around the edge. So I'm going to go Akers over Dobbins, but they are really close.
Yeah. And I wonder, too, if Matt Stafford plays a role in that decision of potentially putting Akers up. I think he is an upgrade over Goff, and obviously I think everyone thinks that. So what was I going to go with? With that, Stafford being better, he would potentially lead to more scoring drives for the Rams, which would increase the upside of Akers. And as you mentioned, Jackson can take a little bit away from Dobbins himself. So Jesse, where are you at on this decision here between Dobbins and Akers?
It's tough. I normally would face a decision like that where I have these guys so closely ranked by being in a draft and seeing which one I end up taking. I actually had a situation where I drafted both, and it was at back-to-back at the turn, so I didn't actually get to choose which one. I didn't realize it. I'm going to lean towards Dobbins.
Interesting.
Maybe just to be devil's advocate here. I love them both. I love the workload that they showed with Akers, but they also showed a real weird committee thing right up until they switched to that heavy workload. So I don't know, how long they intend for that to last. If they mean to give them, 25 touches or 30 touches a game. And also, the stats he put up to me came from those really heavy workloads. Whereas Dobbins had some crazy games on very short workloads. He's a very efficient runner in an efficient offense. So if he can get more opportunities on a regular basis, which is a big if, on that offense, there's a lot of different mouths to feed in different ways. Lamar's going to snipe some touchdowns from him. That's tough. But I think Dobbins is such an efficient runner in such an efficient run scheme that he may have a good shot to pay it off. I love them both, but I'll lean Dobbins.
Interesting. Bill, where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Jesse with this one, man. Hot take today. I think Cam Akers is going to be higher in ADP, and I would agree with that. But I'm going to go with what I know, and I know the Ravens are going to go with a heavy run scheme approach, and they're going to be favored in a lot of games, and they're probably going to win a lot more games than they did last year, and that offense is going to look a lot better than it did last year. That team had a lot of COVID problems, a lot of moving different pieces. Remember, like, that one week, it was like we thought Des Bryant was coming into the week as, like, the number one wide receiver. Like, dude, like, that team was dealing with a lot of different problems and stuff like that. And I do think, though, it makes it an intriguing argument because I think Stafford gives this Rams offense the consistency that McVay's looking for to run his schemes and stuff like that. But I don't know how that works for fantasy. Like Jesse said, like, the team might look better, but they might be up by 14 in a game and bring in freaking Darrell Henderson, or fucking Cam Akers might shit the wrong way in practice or something like that. Like, dude, we don't know. It doesn't that's the reason why he doesn't get the heavy workload. But, I mean, pre-draft, before the landing spots, I had J.K. Dobbins tier ahead, just the slightest tier ahead of Cam Akers. But I thought this was an interesting question because the ADP bid, I do agree, Cam Akers should probably be higher in ADP, but I mean, J.K. Dobbins, man, I feel like the appeal is, we talked about this last year, Mark Ingram is probably going to be gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, he already is. So there's a point.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the match thing. Like,
right.
Official roster, you never know. These NFL teams pull out some weird shit sometimes with these running backs.
All right, so let's say this. Gus Edwards is back in Baltimore. Who is safer for 2021 between Dobbins and Akers?
I would probably say Dobbins from the aspect of, man, I feel like people are going to hear this and be like, yo, what the fuck is Bill thinking? But I got to go with Dobbins over Akers, man. This is going to be a hard choice. I think it would be Cam Akers ranked higher, but yes, long story short, definitely going to have to go with Dobbins over Akers, man. That Ravens run scheme, like, you know what you're going to get from that team.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the game goes, they're going to run the ball.
Now, I will say this. I agree Dobbins is definitely safer, but who do you think has the higher upside for 2021 between Dobbins and Akers?
I think Cam Akers is a good player, but I think J.K. Dobbins is a more talented player, so I'm always going to side with the talent over everything.
Interesting. I think the one thing that could limit the upside of Dobbins is Jackson being at quarterback, stealing touchdowns himself, running the football.
It's a great.
And as you mentioned, running quarterbacks not necessarily thrown short. Instead, they just run the ball themselves. So a lack of receiving upside also for Dobbins. Whereas Akers, I feel like the upside where if he is the full workhorse, he could be that Todd Gurley of years past. Yeah. And that was great.
Yeah,
so,
those touchdowns, dude. I feel like that's the big argument. Do you believe that Cam Akers is going to get the touchdowns or not? Because at the end of the day, bro, if you score touchdowns in fantasy and you're put in the position to score touchdowns in fantasy, you're going to crush.
Definitely.
True.
Let's head on here. Next tough question that we're going to address here is going to be Daniel Jones. And I'm going to kick this one over to Jesse because I'm such a nice guy. Is Daniel Jones a buy or a sell in Dynasty football? This is a tough question. And the reason that I'm such a nice guy is because Jesse admitted to me that this is a very tough question. And so I want to put him on the spot here.
Yeah, this is a hard one because, we're not talking about whether or not Daniel Jones is good. We're talking about whether or not he's a value, and whether that value is at its peak now or will it be later. To me, and I honestly haven't paid enough attention in the drafts that I've done to see where he's been going. So I'm not sure what his ADP is looking like for 2021.
You see him go in drafts and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Someone who wasn't in my queue, so I'm happy.
Yeah. Barely register it. So I will need to look back at some point because I am curious about this. I'm going to lean towards buy. And it's mostly just because that's sort of, I love that kind of situation when people start, their value starts falling, but they haven't completely proven themselves to be bad yet. They've had a lot of bad luck in New York, bad things going on all around the team outside of Daniel Jones. It's not like he has a huge amount of help lately. You know, he had Saquon, and then Saquon got injured. So, you know, that sucked. I'm gonna buy him if he gets cheap enough. You know, if his value is as low as I suspect it might be, and someone's trying to sell him, I'll buy him just because I like throwing darts if they're cheap. When the upside is a starting, even just a starting mediocre quarterback in a super flex league, if they don't draft another quarterback, then I won big. You know, I've got a starting quarterback. Someone's going to get desperate, and I can flip that value later, even if I don't like him. I love throwing those darts as, you know, starting quarterbacks in super flex, just crazy value, even when they're not good. So I'm buying just for the heck of it. You know, fuck it. I'm going to throw a third and maybe a wide receiver or something if somebody's wide receiver needy. And yeah, buying.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, this is not real life football. This is fantasy football, and Daniel Jones is not terrible for fantasy football because he does run the football. We've all basically seen the Turf Monster video where
beautiful.
You know, he had the 80-yard touchdown run, but you know, we can't really explain what happened. But looking
it's
at
a long distance, man, he got winded.
I don't blame him. I would have. Man, I tied my shoe the wrong way in the yeah, but no, I mean, he does rush the football, and you know, having Saquon in the backfield helps that too, because you know, people are going to focus in on Saquon. You can easily get him on the read option with Daniel Jones because they're not expecting skinny white boy in the backfield to start running the football. So that helps in fantasy. I would definitely like to see New York invest in the wide receiver position this offseason, though. Darius Slayton, okay, but he can't be the only real option. I mean, Sterling Shepard was pretty good last season.
Boss. He's a boss.
Who?
Sterling Shepard.
Oh my God!
Unless he has like a Jamison Crowder type revention into his career, he's a bust.
What was he? A second round pick? I think he was. He was
higher than. I mean, not high considering the NFL draft, but high for wide receivers. Wide receivers kind of doesn't really. It's more landing spot dependent rather than. I feel like than draft capital.
He was a second round wide receiver. And I mean, he's been solid. He's been solid, but he's never
solid. But are you going out your way to get Sterling Shepard? You get a trade offer, and the last guy is Sterling Shepard and the trade offer. You're probably going to want something else.
Yeah, I feel that. And Golden Tate, let's not even talk about him. Ooh. So, Evan Ingram too at tight end. You have Saquon, who will be coming back. He'll help the offense for sure. But they have an Odell Beckham-sized gap at the wide receiver position, it seems, and I'd like to see them, you know, invest in that. If they do that, and Daniel Jones is a starter, as Jesse said, he will be worth it. So I think he's worth a buy right now. His price, I don't think it's going to get any. Well, I mean, it obviously could get lower. I hope it wouldn't get lower if I'm buying him, but. If it gets any lower, I don't think anyone would be wanting to buy him at this point. So, Bill, how about you? What are you thinking here?
See, I felt like when I first was looking at Daniel Jones, I felt like lazy analysis. You just want to say sell. And then you start really reading into it a little bit, and you're thinking like, damn, man, you get Saquon back. They probably draft a wide receiver. He can rush. He's going to get a lot of NFC East games. And then I thought, man, I think this is a crazy idea. For our listeners, I want you guys to do this at home before you guys get into your rookie drafts for the next season. Get a short list of just veteran quarterbacks that you can acquire on draft night where people are probably going to be more willing to wheel and deal trades and stuff like that. And you may see a couple quarterbacks flip off the board and we see their landing spots. And a guy like Daniel Jones, before like day 2 happens or something like that, before the Giants draft a wide receiver, you can get Daniel Jones at a good value or like Derek Carr at a good value or something like that. And that's one thing that I'm
Nick?
definitely have is like a short list of veteran quarterbacks that I'm definitely going to try to get because I have a lot of Gardner Minshew on my dynasty teams, and I don't really think he's going to be relevant next season.
Yeah. I think that's great too, especially to highlight for the rookie draft, because you can be on the board there in the middle of the third round, and a specific rookie could be on the board, and a team could potentially be out there really interested in the pick, and at that point maybe they would be willing to sell one of those quarterbacks like Derek Carr or Daniel Jones or other names straight up for that pick, and at that point that's just stealing on your end, because rookie fever does get hot, and by the time the draft is coming around, that rookie pick is going to be at its highest value. So yeah, I mean that's definitely a way to take advantage and find some little help at the quarterback position. So I like that point a lot, Billy. Wow, straight buys there on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming, man. I was thinking like on paper, dude, like
because it's hard to
win a draft or a mock draft, and you go and you still have Daniel Jones on your team. You're just like, fuck, man, I got Daniel Jones.
It's hard though. Like, how are you gonna sit here and say sell? Because what do you expect to get back, and what do you want to get back for Daniel Jones? Like, I can tell you that what I expect to get back, like if I were to potentially try and trade Daniel Jones, what I expect to get back and what I want to get back are not going to be anywhere close to each other. So how can you even sell Daniel Jones right now? If you're in a position where someone hits you up and they're like, hey, I want Daniel Jones, and you're like, okay, well, I don't really want him and I have other options, then that's a win for you. But I probably wouldn't be actively trying to sell him because, like I said, what are you really getting back at that point? All right, we have one more tough question to answer, and then we have a nice little exit ticket like high schools. Bill, you remember the exit tickets in high school?
I remember it in a couple of my college classes, like and it's not good memories, man. Like the religion class, dude. I remember that shit, dude. You have to like write in the little booklet thing, and that'd be your exit ticket. Dude,
wait, who was
paying attention to
Father
the
Hunt?
creepy old dude.
Did you ever have Father Hunt?
The creepy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Father Hunt, creepy old dude.
Yeah, I mean, the journals and stuff. Oh my gosh,
dude, we would have to have a
so
test
let's head into this.
And literally write 30 pages of like worth of like stuff about the Bible, and stuff like that. I'm just like, dude, what am I learning out of this?
That's awesome.
Is this real life? I wish it was not.
Yeah. Man,
final tough question here. Final tough question here. What are you doing with James Robinson? Bill, let's kick it to you first.
Yeah, man, this one's a tough one, man. And it's just like this. If you have James Robinson, for starters, you didn't expect him to reach this value with James Robinson.
No.
A lot of people that won championships this year are looking at their team right now and thinking, how can I get better? And they have James Robinson. They're thinking, man, what the fuck do I want to do with James Robinson? Because it's just like if they get Trevor Lawrence and they don't draft a running back, James Robinson's going to shoot up the board draft-wise. Mm-hmm. But then if, let's say, they draft a running back on day 2 or day 3, like there's a lot of deep – it's not like last year's class. I feel like this class this year is there's going to be a lot of starters on day 2, day 3 at the wide receiver and running back positions. And, like, man, who's to say somebody doesn't beat out James Robinson for the job? I mean, like, it's a whole entire different coaching staff. Dude probably doesn't – Nick Saban doesn't even know who the hell James Robinson probably even is before he even got this job. So it's just like, what ties does he have to him? Who's to say, like, some random running back like Trey Sermon doesn't end up on the Jags and people are buying Trey Sermon at an absurd cost after the rookie draft or something like that. But with James Robinson, though, man, I feel like if you could sell him for the house, sell him for the house for a team that really needs a running back and they don't know if they're going to get Najee Harris or ETN or something like that. Like, that's the only way I would really see him selling. But if you can afford it, man, I would try to keep it and just ride the wave, man. But I feel like the drop off of a sell is going to be so far by like 3 months from now.
Yeah. You just have to answer it yourself. Is he at peak value after a top 5 finish at the running back position? I mean, you can make the argument that he is, but at the same time, there's a lot of people doubting out there. And I think we've talked about this on the show before, but there's a legitimate reason for doubt. Like, it's very rare that you see undrafted rookie running backs come in and succeed. And then even when they do, you have mixed results of what happens. Like, for example, Austin Eckler was an undrafted rookie running back, came into a backfield that also had Melvin Gordon in it, but he did succeed when he was given the opportunity. And the team paid him for it. The team committed to him and decided to, make him their running back of the future. And then you have guys like Philip Lindsay, where he's an undrafted rookie coming in. Kenyon, was he undrafted? I think he was.
I'm just saying.
Kenyon Drake was
just an obscure situation where he found himself being in a good scenario over the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, there's just weird situations here, and there's going to be that question where you don't really know if the team is going to commit to him. I would say that the Jaguars have way too many holes to spend a pick on a running back or, invest in free agency on a running back when they have a guy who did really well last season already on the roster. Regardless of whether he's an undrafted rookie free agent, first-round pick, anywhere in between, he did well. So we have to acknowledge that. And did well in a team that had no defense, had no passing game. Somehow this rookie running back was able to do well. So I think that alone gives him another season, like you said, it's a whole different regime and everything, but they had, like I said, this roster has so many holes that I don't like. A day 2 pick, for example, wouldn't it make more sense for them to invest in the defense on the day 2 pick where they traded basically their entire defense?
Yeah, but when you draft the quarterback, man, you're like you saw with the Bengals last season, like they had a lot of holes in their defense and they just drafted a shitload of offensive players for a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
When you get that quarterback, Rob, I feel like you just fall in love with the different guys that you can put pieces around him with, and you want to do that immediately to build chemistry.
They have a lot of picks,
I mean, one guy that I like a lot this offseason, unrelated to the James Robinson point, but is DJ Chark, because I feel like, obviously in a few months he's going to have a quarterback upgrade, and that's just guaranteed. But the difference there is that there's a real world where Jacksonville does invest. They will probably they have this pick, but day 2 even investing at the running back position, or not running back, wide receiver. I mean, so that could really kill the value of DJ Chark. But until then, I feel like he's on the rise. I feel the same for James Robinson. I feel like until they prove to me that they're not going to rock with him, that he's a value. He's inside that top 20, I think, for a lot of people at the Dynasty running back rankings. I think he's worth that. I don't know if he's going to be a top 5 running. I doubt he'll be a top 5 running back every season, but I can definitely see him finishing as a top 15 guy if he has the role again next season. And I think that's more realistic to expect. And if you can buy him as a top 20 guy, then maybe, you're finding a little bit of value there. Jesse, what are your thoughts here? James Robinson.
I'm also a buy. He's hard to buy because he's getting expensive now. The hype is real. But I would be one of the jerks who would be not selling him for anything reasonable, probably. So for that reason,
Or you're
Yeah.
not getting them.
If I'm anywhere, able to get something, workable, I'm buying. It's not like the Jags were leading many games last year. Right. And so it's not like they were in ideal game scripts for a running back, and he still broke records, in his rookie campaign coming off of an undrafted season. So, yeah, the Jags, they also have a ton of picks. So, with a ton of picks, they could address O-line, defense, and still, pick up a running back while they're at it. But to me, I think, James Robinson has earned the benefit of the doubt from him. I imagine he'll get the edge on whoever comes in, even if someone does come in. And I think I love him. I'm buying.
Interesting. Good point. All right. So, we talked about James Robinson here. Real quick, rank the three, because we talked about this a little bit earlier. J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, throw James Robinson into that mix. Is he clearly beneath those two in dynasty terms, or is he, somewhere around there?
I think he's close, but he's definitely the third for me. He's a slightly different tier to me. He might be a better value because it's hard to buy Dobbins or Akers right now, and it's like I said, it's hard to buy James Robinson too. But I think you could buy him at a much more reasonable price than the other two. The other two are going to cost you a haul, so he might be a better value than those.
Bill, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that one. You spend a lot of draft equity and a lot of time getting those running backs. You're definitely are way more willing to trade off the guy that you picked off of waivers than the guy that you drafted at the 102 or something like that.
Definitely. All right, we got one more question to round us out. Before we do that, final shout out here at Dynasty Force Pod on Twitter. Make sure you follow us. And we're always live on Wednesdays, normally 4:30 p.m. So, come check us out. We're always here. And we're live on YouTube as well, Dynasty Force Podcasts at the same time. And the show is available on all major listening platforms the day after, which is Thursday. So be sure to subscribe wherever you can, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you would like to leave a like or a review on whatever listening platform you're listening to, I would appreciate that. I'm sure Bill would appreciate that. As Bill is very thankful, a very thankful person. And then you could also follow us on Twitter. Me at FantasyForceFB, Billy at Getting Bills, Trey, even though Trey's not here, at FF Superflex Guru, and then final shout out here, Jesse at Gray Heisenberg on Twitter, and hit him up for trades on Sleeper, trying to go back to back as the champ in a lot of leagues here. Also Gray Heisenberg. So final little question here to round us out. What's the biggest surprise you've seen in mock? I put mock in parentheses because if you haven't done real drafts, then mocks are only all you have to go off of. But if you've done real drafts, I prefer them. Jesse, I know you mentioned you've done some real drafts. Any big surprises you've seen?
Yeah, watching Mike Thomas slide and how dramatically he's sliding right now. I got him in the 5th round of one of my startups, and that sort of blew me away because I went like Patrick Mahomes, Dobbins, and Akers, then Tannehill, and then Mike Thomas. And I was like, dude, this is one of my favorite starts to a startup in Superflex I've ever had. Seeing him drop, I understand the hesitance. He had a rough season this past season, but I mean, Drew Brees didn't help. Drew Brees, he didn't play his best season last season. Mike Thomas, I've heard that he had some serious injuries going on that he was playing through that year. I don't know how much merit there is to that, and I know he got kind of weird on social media there for a stretch. Some people started getting AB vibes or something, but to me, he's been like the model of consistency and eliteness for so long, and I'm not convinced that he has fully hit his cliff yet. So I'm taking him in the 5th all day, and that's cool to see that surprise if you can get him at that value. sweet. It surprised the crap out of me, but
I feel that. I think a lot of it too is the quarterback of the future, because who's it going to be? Jameis Winston not under contract. Taysom Hill is, but is Taysom Hill really going to be the quarterback of the future? It's a lot up in the air right now with Michael Thomas. So there's a reason for him falling, but still, like you said, as much like last year, he was a mid-first round pick in every single startup, and it wasn't even like any sort of a question. And now you're like getting him in the 5th, and there's even some people who are getting him there, and they're like, man, I don't even want to take Michael Thomas here, but he's just too good of a value for me to pass up. How do I, So, man, the fall for Michael Thomas is real right now. Bill, what have you seen that's been a big surprise for you so far?
Yeah, just talk about the Michael Thomas thing. In my home league, we transferred from a redraft to a Dynasty league last season, and I was the guy that fell on the clock at 8, and Michael Thomas was the obvious pick, and I was like, man, dude, I not want to pull this fucking trigger. And I ended up trading out the pick, dude, and it turned out to be the 203, and then I tanked and got the 202. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. But biggest value that I've ever seen in drafts, though, so far this season, Denzel Mims, man. Why are people down on Denzel Mims or have questions about Denzel Mims? He's a baller, dude. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of mocks and stuff like that. And I feel like, let's say if you're like a heavy running back early type of guy, you can get like Mims at your wide receiver 2 or as a flex or something like that, and that's like a pretty good shaped up team, dude. I like Denzel Mims a lot. He's definitely due for a quarterback upgrade, but even if it was Sam Darnold, he did show somewhat of a chemistry with Sam Darnold. But let's say if this team does get a true quarterback upgrade, you can kind of either get Mims, or this is about to make you throw up in your mouth part 2. Brashad Perryman also as well is a buy, I think. The team has been talking about in the reports and stuff like that about Jameson Crowder could be a cap casualty this season and might get cut during camp or something like that. I've been seeing some beat reports about that. And I think that a lot of sharp dynasty owners should definitely buy into the Jets offense before the draft starts, and they really do get that quarterback upgrade and we start seeing people talk about him.
That's interesting. Mims, I like the point a lot. He definitely could be in a position where he is a clear-cut number 1 wide receiver next season. So he's definitely a buy, and at his value right now, he's definitely someone you should be targeting. As far as Brashad Perriman, that's a completely different story, and that's a topic for another day, you and your Jets wide receivers. But like you mentioned, Jamison Crowder, did mention him as a potential cap casualty, so that is something to highlight. And
man, I read into that because I have a lot of James Crowder on my team, and do I think he can go to another team and play the same exact slot role and be productive? But man, like the Adams Gase offense, there's something weird about it with the slot wide.
It's an anomaly, man. Everybody escaping that is great. We watched it with Robbie Anderson. Yep. I agree. It's going to be a big boost.
Definitely. For me, I am going to say the hate for Jerry Jeudy. Really, from a perspective of current hate for Jerry Jeudy. I know it wasn't a fantastic rookie season, and potentially another season of Drew Lock behind center. And, now we'll actually have Cortland Sutton on the other side of the field and more progression from Noah Fant. But this is a wide receiver who was arguably the best wide receiver coming in. He was my wide receiver 1 coming in pre-draft last season. A lot of people had him as the wide receiver 1. He really, there were some people who had CeeDee Lamb ahead of him coming in, but a lot of people had Jerry Jeudy as that number 2. I really didn't see him lower than 3, really anywhere for a lot of people. And now, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't touch Jerry Jeudy with a 10-foot pole. And it's just tough. We talked about the drop-off with Michael Thomas. Denzel Mims, he's down there, but I feel like he was never up super high. He was never someone that everyone was like, oh, got to get Denzel Mims and all this. But Jerry Jeudy is another guy who's dropping off here. And, we've mentioned this before, but talent is always going to win out. And, we did a mock draft, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, on a episode of the podcast. And I ended up getting Jerry Jeudy in the late 12th round of this draft. And to me, that's just easy value. To be fair, a lot of wide receivers did fall, but Jerry Jeudy is a very young wide receiver who we evaluated really not long ago, one year ago, as being very, very talented at the position, and now all of a sudden no one wants him. It's just a big surprise to me. I think only over time he'll get better because he'll get more acclimated to the league, and hopefully he'll get upgrades at the quarterback position. John Elway isn't running things anymore in Denver, so that's only good news for him, it seems, at the quarterback position. So the drop off of certain players, it's a real thing to talk about. So
can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One player that I was actually thinking about for this question was Courtland Sutton, actually. I feel like even though Judy's in a different talent tier, man, there's some upside for Courtland Sutton from the aspect of, A, this team can get a quarterback upgrade for this upcoming season, and B, he could be a free agent after next season, and it's probably more likely he's going to be a free agent, and wherever he lands is probably way better than the Denver Broncos. But I just wanted to throw that one out there for the listeners if you got this deep into the audio. Courtland Sutton, dude, definitely a guy to think about if an owner has that bad taste in their mouth from overvaluing him last season. Man, Courtland Sutton might fuck around and be in a good spot 2 years from now, and we might be talking about him as the biggest value as a mock draft.
Definitely. All right, and one final thank you and congratulations to our guest, guest for this episode, Gray Heisenberg. Jesse, thanks for coming on, and we'll be happy to have you on again sometime soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. I'd love to be on again, man.
Perfect. Glad you could join. And Bill, hope you enjoyed this nice DFS night for basketball, right?
Yeah, man. About to head on out of here right now. I got to hop in and start doing my projections ASAP.
I feel. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all enjoy your night, your week, and we'll see you next time here on the Dynasty Force podcast.